Welcome on in to WagerTalk Extra. I'm your host, Dan Alexander, and we're here to remind you that no matter what sport you're cashing on, all that money is going to spend the same. Can't believe it's our final edition of the week already, but we have a great show planned for you today. Three terrific guests. Andy Lang coming on at the top. We're going to talk a little auto racing, get you ready for Formula One and NASCAR this weekend. It's his favorite restrictor plate this weekend in NASCAR. So I know Andy's excited to talk about that one. And then Kyle Anthony and Moneyline Matt are going to shut down the show, talk a little UFC 286. So let's welcome in Andy right here at the top. And as I mentioned, Andy, you're very pumped up for this week. We'll talk about the Atlanta Motor Speedway and a place that you used to cash out with regularity. But first, let's start with everyone's favorite, a little Stenhouse award. If people are just joining us for the first time, tell them a little bit what it's about and who's taking home the gold this week, Andy.
The Stenhouse Award is going to the funniest moment or the biggest screw up in auto racing of the week. And the winner, coming out of nowhere, announcer Mike Joy, pompous prick. NASCAR has taken heat for way too many commercial breaks while the race is going on. And so they don't even show the picture-in-picture sometimes. So Mike Joy says, and this is a direct quote from a live broadcast, "To all the keyboard warriors out there, let me use one syllable words. The last green full screen break of commercials comes right now." So Mike Joy just insults the audience for complaining about having too many commercials as he goes to commercial break, validating the audience that he just insulted. And I have to say, this is an ongoing thing with NASCAR. NASCAR can't figure out why the audience is dwindling. So I never in a million years would have thought the announcers would insult the audience. But I want to take a look. I want to take a little comparison at some things that used to happen in the past with NASCAR compared to what happens now. So Dale Earnhardt, known as the Intimidator, legendarily celebrated his Daytona 500 win by doing donuts in the infield grass, but he did it in the shape of a 3, his car number. Joey Logano won a championship, and he celebrated by getting hair plugs. That happened last year. Tony Stewart shattered his legs multiple times during midget races during the week. In between NASCAR races on small tracks and small towns, doctors sewed him up so he'd get back into racing in NASCAR. That happened years ago. This year, Chase Elliott's going to miss a chunk of the season because he broke his leg snowboarding in Colorado. A little bit of a difference. And finally, Richard Petty once ate Kentucky Fried Chicken with President Ronald Reagan on July 4th. Very NASCAR-y. Dale Earnhardt Jr. took speech lessons to get rid of his hard Southern accent so he could be more marketable. And Jeff Gordon was sponsored by DuPont. The announcers called him the Rainbow Warrior. Now the NASCAR announcers are calling their fans keyboard warriors. NASCAR can't figure out why they're losing audience, and this is exactly why. So congratulations, Mike Joy. You have really done a great job of showing why NASCAR is constantly shooting itself in the foot. You're the winner of the Stenhouse Award this week.
Yeah, bold strategy when you're dwindling with fans to be like, hey, idiots, we're going to commercial now. It's just like bold strategy, Mr. Joy. We'll see if it pays off for you. Just as excited as when you see Mike Joy in the booth announcing games or announcing races is how excited you feel about this Atlanta Motor Speedway this weekend. So I'm sure it'll be a brief preview, but what can people expect this weekend in NASCAR, Andy?
The iconic track, Atlanta Motor Speedway. You can see it here. It's a cookie cutter, very, very fast track. This was a great track to bet on in years past when they came out with the new cars last year. They made the cars too fast for this track, so they had to slow them down. So this, in essence, is another restrictor plate race like Talladega and like Daytona. And unfortunately, they've taken away most of the betting opportunities. I won't be playing any head-to-head matchups. I won't be playing any outrights or top tens. And I beg the audience to please do the same thing. There's no reason to force bets on this track this year. Do not look at previous track history because it's not the same race. You could put your money in much, much better places like the Formula One race that we're getting ready to talk about. I may look at some props like maybe total leaders or cautions, but it's a very, very fast track. It should be a fun race to watch, I will say. But as far as betting goes, I will not have much action on this track. That's what's going to be happening at Atlanta this weekend in NASCAR.
So head on over to Andy's page to get his 5% play at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. I'm just kidding. No action going this weekend, but you can check Andy out. A terrific deal that he has rocking an NHL and NBA combo. And these are two sports that have been just great for you, Andy. So before we get into the slipstream, just tell them a little bit about that great deal.
Yeah, we've been running really, really hot in NHL and NBA. NHL in particular is really doing well. We're up 37 units just in the last week in the NHL. This is the time of year where we run real hot. It's post All-Star breaks in both sports. So we're going to run a special. It's up right now, $149. Gets you all plays in NBA and NHL through the regular season and postseason of both sports. We did this last year and we brought in 85 units total. So it's a great deal. This has been up for a few days and people have been cashing already. Don't miss out on it. Up on wagertalk.com.
Love it, Andy. And again, just shows the different sports you'll get with all access from a man, Andy Lang. He does a little bit of everything. Andy, it's time to head to the slipstream. And this one I know you're a little bit more excited about. Probably going to have a few more plays on this one when we're talking about the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix. And what are we looking at this weekend in F1 action?
Yeah, so this is a fairly new track. I believe they built it in 2021, and just aesthetically, it's stupid. I mean, look at the shape of it. What is this? It's a pretty bad track. It's not visually appealing like a lot of the other beautiful tracks. One important thing to notice: it's all enclosed, so there's no runoff area. So if there's any type of wreck, you're going to see a virtual safety car or a safety car, and so you'll notice those props are very heavily juiced. They're going to hit because any type of wreck, there's no runoff area, so they will have to slow down the race. So those props are definitely in play. They raced at it last year. It was a great battle between Leclerc and Verstappen at the end. All those tight turns, it really highlights drivers, how they handle themselves in a lot of traffic, especially off the start. You have to be very, very clean. There's going to be a lot of tight action, especially with no runoff. This is Red Bull's race to lose. It came out that they were so fast in the last race that the team told Red Bull to slow down, that there was no reason to put that much stress on the engine. So that's what we're dealing with here. The other thing that's happening, Leclerc may have a penalty because of changing some equipment out. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Aston Martin was one of the biggest surprises in testing, and then Fernando Alonso showed it was no fluke. He looked really, really good in the last race. I would expect another strong performance from him. The AlphaTauris looked really bad. The Williams cars, who were bottom feeders in testing and all of last year, actually had a couple of pretty good finishes last week. So if you're looking for value, they may be a sneaky team to take advantage of and maybe get some plus money bets, as they certainly looked better than some of the other competition. It'll be a pretty fast race, as you don't see a ton of really big areas where the cars really have to slow down. There's only that one area. You've got three DRS zones, which is going to help the Red Bulls, especially if they can get out past that 1 second lead. If they have a 1 second lead, the DRS doesn't open up for the cars behind them. So it should help the Red Bulls. I expect the Red Bull double podium finish, probably a 1-2 in this one in Saudi Arabia. And of course, the Mercedes. I want nothing to do with the Mercedes. They're fade material right now.
So you broke down that you're very bullish coming in on the Red Bull cars, but you also have a best bet for the folks here on another vehicle that you think could be seeing some, maybe not podium, but definitely be around that top finishing. So what do you got for the best bet for the folks here today, Andy?
Well, the pecking order right now is the Red Bulls, and then you can put the two Ferrari cars and probably the Fernando Alonso Aston Martin car in the next tier. I'll take Ferrari both to finish in the top six. Now, there's a couple things you can do with this one. I mentioned that Charles Leclerc possibly can have a penalty. You can play this bet right now at minus 150. If Leclerc gets a penalty and has to start kind of farther in the back, you're going to get better odds. He's still going to finish in the top six. He will blow through this field and end up in the top six. He'll be patient off the start, and he'll use that Ferrari speed to get through the field. Don't panic if he does have a penalty. So your options are: you can take it now at minus 150. If he doesn't get a penalty and they qualify really well, this price is going to be below minus 200. If he does get a penalty and starts in the back, you're probably going to get minus 125. Me personally, I'm going to play it safe, and I'm going to take it now at -150. Both Ferraris should be fighting for that third, fourth, and fifth spot as long as they both start off the race clean, which I anticipate a clean start. These cars are brand new. I'm sure teams are telling the drivers to be extra cautious. They need as many laps as possible to figure out the new adjustments that they made on the cars this year. So I don't expect a lot of bumping and banging. But Ferrari to finish top 6, look for Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc to be in that top 6 and top 5 range most of the race.
That's Andy Lang. Make sure to check him out at wt.buzz/AL. And make sure you check out Wednesday's edition of WagerTalk Extra if you want to get his thoughts on the UFC 286 card. Because coming up next is Kyle Anthony. You can get his thoughts if you stick right here with us on WagerTalk Extra right after this. Welcome on back to Wager Talk Extra. Time to talk a little UFC 286 with the man himself, Kyle Anthony. And I should have said the man, the myth, the legend. #1 ROI capper in all sports last year. And if you just go the last 3 years, this guy, when he's talking mixed martial arts, you better listen. How about up 105, over 105 units over the last 3 years? And yeah, if you're wondering, that's #1 as well. So Kyle, not only have you been cashing like crazy for the clients, the free gold you've handed out on this show, we made it another outright dog winner last week. And what, that was like a plus 200 something that you gave the folks?
Yeah, Marab got us to cash in there. Like we were talking about off camera too. We're like, hey, we got these plus money. We gotta keep rolling through them. So I think we got another one here that will make it. What is it now? 4 or 5? I don't even know where we're at now.
All I know is it's every week you come on here, and like I said, you're like the Easter bunny, just dropping these eggs, hiding these Easter eggs, but you're the Easter bunny that could kick anyone's ass and has a black belt. So it's a great thing that you have working, Kyle. Hey man, you always love coming on here previewing the main event, and we have an absolute treat in this one. It's Usman, it's Edwards. How are you going to be betting the three-peat for these guys?
Yeah, this is the trilogy here. You got Usman -260 on the comeback here. You've got Leon Edwards +210. And when you're looking at this fight, obviously the first thing you really got to talk about is the wrestling, is the grappling. And that's going to be Usman's path. He has had so much success with that quick first step, the top pressure, being able to manipulate movement up against the fence. He's really found a lot of success doing that. And that's what he did in that fight, up into the head kick heard around the world. He was able to do that. But if you look at this situation, the biggest issue, I believe, for Edwards in this fight, in the last fight, is his output, the low output, the low volume. He doesn't really go out there and really push the pace at all. Even against Nate Diaz recently, he was beating him up for 5 rounds, still never really pushed to look for that finish. That could open up some spots for Usman again in this spot, looking for level changes. And really the part of this is what Edwards needs to do is he needs to push the pace. He needs to keep the wrestler on the back foot. He needs to keep Usman on the back foot, pushing forward, pushing the volume out. He's going to have the better striking. He's going to have the more powerful striking. Yes, Usman has a beautiful jab setting up his offense, but I really think that this is really, if it stays on the feet, he can have a little bit more success if he pushes the pace. Now, on these shows, on my capping, I always talk about stats, talk about optically what we see, paths to victory, a lot of those things. There are a lot of intangibles that I think really, really go towards Leon Edwards in this fight. And I think the first one being, it's the first knockout loss of Usman's career. And not only a knockout loss, but a brutal, brutal knockout of the year loss. Now you add in the fact he's going to be 36 in a month. That also doesn't help things, while Edwards is kind of entering his prime at this point. So he's kind of, evolving, getting better. Then you add in the fact that Usman's talked about retirement multiple times before even the last fight, having other ventures. Now, listen, if I'm betting somebody, I don't want them talking about retirement, other avenues of income. I don't want to hear it. I want to hear how they're going to take the opponent's head off. And it seems like Usman has had some of that. Not like he's going in there and going to lay down, but I think some of those things are there. Now, also, the last part here is if you look, and I think this is an incredible stat, is if you look at over the history of the UFC, any fighter that has lost a belt and looked for an immediate rematch, those champions are 3-11. So Usman is really up against it here on the history of the UFC. It really shows that these guys who have a long career winning and then all of a sudden they lose, the demise is pretty quickly. That could be happening here. So in this spot, I think the plus 210 is pretty good here for Edwards. I think he has the ability to get the knockout or dictate the pace, but I do like Edwards here on this number, plus 210. I think he continues to be the champion.
We're looking at the champion who is a dog somehow. That's the respect that Usman gets in the marketplace. And also the knockout that Edwards had on Usman was one of the craziest that I've ever seen. Was actually in Las Vegas for that fight. We were in Las Vegas for that fight.
We were there.
And man, wild finish there. So I can't wait to see
we were
this
coasting.
rematch.
Yeah,
I
was
that's
coasting
what I mean.
to the
like,
Usman decision.
Easy money.
Coasting.
This is a Usman decision. He's just got to lay and pray, and then bang, the head kick heard round the world. Unreal, man. Leon Edwards as the dog to potentially do it again. I don't know if it'll be in as exciting a fashion if we get this one home, but I guess time will tell, man. So, hey, you also have a fight to watch, and interestingly enough, if you go check out Wednesday's edition of Wager Talk Extra, this was also the preview that Andy Lang had on his There Will Be Blood. So he expects that there could be some potential haymakers thrown when Casey O'Neill and Jennifer Maia face off. Casey O'Neill, the 185 favorite. This is your fight to watch. What are we looking at?
So my fight to watch is going to be a very interesting fight. It is going to be Jennifer Maia versus Casey O'Neill. Now, this is a fight here where you're looking at it. It's a veteran and a title challenger in Jennifer Maia going up against the hype train, the 24-year-old or 25-year-old in Casey O'Neill, undefeated prospect. And there's a lot of good things that she does well. You know, she has fantastic forward pressure. She is, you know, when it comes to just well-roundedness, good ground game, a lot of good things that she does do. On the other side here, Jennifer Maia, 5-5 out of her last 10, solid boxing, good footwork. We've seen that she can go 5 hard rounds, you know, against Shevchenko. She was able to do that. But really, if you're looking at kind of the path to victory for Casey O'Neill, it's really going to be up against the fence, pressuring, moving forward, utilizing her reach advantage. She's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage. That's going to help her. Without a doubt, that's going to help her if she needs to. When she has it, she looks for takedowns and looks for that control time. Now, I think the issue that she's going to face is really going to be Maia's boxing. Maia has very underrated boxing, and her countering ability is fantastic. We've seen her against longer fighters, longer rangier fighters, and she's been able to kind of get out of danger, come back, pop in, and she's been able to do that over the course of a fight. Even is going to have faster hands in this spot against Casey O'Neill. And you even look at the fact that, listen, she is very hittable. Casey O'Neill was getting hit by Roxanne Modafferi. Roxanne Modafferi is very low level when it comes to striking, when it comes to any of that. That was her retirement fight, and she still made it scrappy in that particular situation here. So I think when you're looking at it also, the Muay Thai, I think, of Maia is going to help in the clinch, utilizing the elbow, framing off her opponent. I think that will help her as well, too. And strength of schedule on the last part of this, definitely not close either. It's for Maia. She's faced Valentina Shevchenko, Caitlin Chikagian, Joanne Wood, Manon Fiore. These are some tough fighters that she has faced, had some success, lost some, won some. But I think this is a spot when you're looking at it that if Casey doesn't get that finish early or doesn't dominate, this fight could be very, very close. Maia has the ability and I think has the legs to kind of keep the cardio going for the full 3 rounds. And the last part of this, I think that's very interesting, is the fact that Casey O'Neill has had a 1.5-year layoff. She is coming off of ACL injury in her last fight. And as well as this is the toughest opponent she's ever faced. So there are a lot of things I think that kind of mount against her. Yes, she's got all the ability, and I think that she can be great moving forward. But this is a very tough spot for her, a step up in competition. So I think that Jennifer Maia gets the job done. Plus 150, I think, is a great spot.
Another dog for the dog king here, my man Kyle Anthony. And when you're talking about return on investment, this is a guy who is the best or was the best last year at least. And when you're trying to be a savvy sports bettor, ROI is exactly what you're looking for. He was number 1 in all sports at WagerTalk last year. And in MMA last 3 years, he has just cashed with regularity. And also with these 5% plays, those have been cashing with some regularity too, Kyle. And I think you got one of those locked and loaded over at your page right now.
Yeah, definitely do. Cash 5 of the last 6. Feeling good about it. Another plus money spot that I do like here. Probably going to have 3 or 4 plays in this package, but I'm fired up about it. Check me out, wagertalk.com, and let's get it done.
Yeah, and one of those things that I will always back blindly is my man Kyle Anthony's 5% plays in UFC. So you want to go and grab that right this moment. All right, we got his thoughts. You should be well set up for the main event in 286. We got 2 more fights to preview, and that's with our man Moneyline Matt right after this here on WagerTalk Extra. Welcome on back for the final segment here of WagerTalk Extra for the week. And as we usually shut it down here on a Thursday afternoon or Thursday evening, whenever you're joining us here, we like heading on over to sportsmemo.com, talking to my man Moneyline Matt. And yes, I know everybody's eyes are on the WagerTalk live odds screen looking at how they can get down on March Madness. You probably have another screen sitting to the left of you, but huge card this weekend in UFC 286. Main event that we heard Kyle Anthony talking about will be electric, but my man Matt's here to get you some actionable info further down the card as well. Let's take a look at this Mokaev and Filho fight. You have 2 different ways that you're going to be looking at this one, and let's start with how you're breaking down as far as the total rounds are looking. You have a total prop for the folks. What are we thinking, Moneyline Matt?
Yeah, in this bout, we're going to be looking at Muhammad Mokaev and Jafel Filho. And for this fight, you take a look at it, the lines are minus 800, so really inflated for Mokaev. So you're trying to find somewhere else to find a little bit of value. So for me, in this fight, I'm actually looking at the under 2.5 rounds, and it's for a couple of reasons. For one, some news came out in Mokaev's camp that he just might have an injury, so it's making me a little weary here. I think it could go under. And both of these fighters typically go to the under when they have matchups or MMA matchups, whether it's in their professional career or whether it's in their UFC career. With Mokaev, he's finished 2 out of 3 of his opponents within the UFC, and 4 out of 7 of his fights as a professional have been finished within the distance as well. So I think this is a really good look, especially with Mokaev here. He's someone who likes to get his opponents to the ground. He's someone who likes to work a submission on top of that. And then as for Filho on top of it, he's also someone who tends to get his fights finished within the distance on top of that. These are both guys who are trying to make a name within the UFC as well. Filho just winning a fight within the Contender Series in which he got a knockout, and Mokaev coming off a submission victory. So in this bout, I think it's going to kind of stay that course. I think both of these fighters are trying to make a name within the UFC. Guys coming out of the UFC Contender Series are generally trying to make a statement for Dana White to get that explosive victory so they can get that next fight, that next big fight, whatever it may be, that big name. And on top of that, when Filho has lost, it's actually been by a rear naked choke, and that's one of Mokaev's best moves. So because of that, I really do like the look of this inside the distance and under 2.5 rounds.
Well, and Matt, while I'm hearing you break down that fight, while it might not be an official play for you, I'm hearing a lot of you just saying this is minus 800, even up to minus 900 in some spots number for Mokaev. Sounds like you're not going to be throwing that in any parlays, and you probably suggest that other folks do the same. Sounds like there could be a live dog. While it might not be an official play, you're maybe saying stay away from laying it with Mokaev. Is that right?
Yeah, in all honesty, Muhammad Mokaev is an undefeated fighter within the UFC and throughout his professional career. So to an extent, I understand that minus 800 line. But something that I want people to be weary about is in Muhammad Mokaev's camp, he came out and said that he dislocated his shoulder. This was around 8 weeks ago when he came out and said that. Why he came out and said that, I'm unsure, but you can't help but look back at that TJ Dillashaw fight. TJ Dillashaw came into that bout with a dislocated shoulder. It dislocated again in the first round. So again, we go back to my under 2.5 rounds. That's part of the reason that I do like that under 2.5 rounds, in addition to both of these fighters finishing their opponents with inside the distance. Then on top of that, you add in that dislocated shoulder with Muhammad Mokaev, and I do think there's potential for this to come out again. And then in addition to that, Mokaev didn't look all that great in his last fight. He was losing positions. He was at times getting getting put in spots where he could potentially get finished. And, you know, with a minus 800 favorite for someone who didn't exactly go out and dominate his last fight, I'm just saying be weary in this one. I'm not running to the window to take Filho, but again, I think this could be a parlay buster. So just be weary just clicking a minus 800 and adding it to that 4-fight, 5-fight parlay that you might have coming up.
That's Moneyline Matt. You can get him at sm.buzz/MLM. Second fight that you want to break down a little bit closer of odds at 245 and a plus 186 take back on Gaethje in this one. But you think you might just have an ISO on an outcome finish in this upcoming match. Who are we talking about and what are you eyeing, Matt?
Yeah, this is, you know, this one's going to rival Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman, I got to say, because this one's Justin Gaethje and Rafael Fiziev. And these two fighters, this is going to be a stand and bang fight. We all know how Justin Gaethje is. He's one of those guys, he loves to throw absolute bombs. He's trying to knock out his opponent. And he's actually someone who is a collegiate wrestler. He was a really good wrestler in college and never uses it within the UFC. And that's also why, you know, he is a fan favorite. Again, throwing those bombs, trying to get those KOs. But in this bout, I do not see that working for him. I'm going to be honest. I'm going Fiziev here because when you take a look at Rafael Fiziev, he is one of the most decorated strikers, not only in the division, but throughout the entire UFC. And when you take a look at Justin Gaethje, yes, he's a decorated striker as well. But he gets a little wild at times. He doesn't mix in the takedowns like he should, like I kind of said earlier. And he gets a little outside. He telegraphs his punches a little bit more when he gets a little crazy. And you go back and you look at Justin Gaethje's career, the times that he has been knocked out, the last time was actually 2018 when he got knocked out by Dustin Poirier. And Dustin Poirier, one of the best boxers throughout the UFC, very technical striker, mixes in the kicks on top of that. And then the year before, he got knocked out by Eddie Alvarez. And Eddie Alvarez isn't the best striker in the world, but again, a technical striker. He picks his spot. He counter strikes very well. And that's exactly what Fiziev does. And when I compare Rafael Fiziev to guys like Dustin Poirier, like an Eddie Alvarez, like a Michael Chandler, who Michael Chandler got some solid shots on Gaethje as well. But I actually think Fiziev is better than all of them, you know, and I say that for the pure fact that you don't know where these strikes are coming from Rafael Fiziev. He is very good in throwing punches, counter punches, jabs, but he's also very good with the kick game, and that's high kicks, low kicks, a little bit of everything. And with Justin Gaethje, you know, he just gets so wild, and he's one of my favorite fighters throughout the UFC, so it's tough to root against him because every single fight he puts out so much heart, so much grit, determination, like he's willing to die in that cage, and you can't help but love guys like that. But again, he's just never wrestles. He's always trying to throw that bomb. He's always trying to get you out of that cage. And with someone like Rafael, I just don't see it happening. And Fiziev right now is a minus 245 favorite for a money line outcome. And if you're looking to get a little bit better of odds, you can go exact outcome KO TKO, which is plus 140, I'm sorry. And then you can also go double chance, which is KO TKO or submission at plus 110. And once again, you know, as tough as Gaethje is and as hard as he throws, there's always a chance. You know, within the UFC, you hear that saying, you're always a puncher's chance away. But for this one, I just can't see it. I think Gaethje gets a little too wild. I think he just kind of telegraphs his punches a little too much. And I actually see this fight going similar to how that Dustin Poirier fight went. I think there's going to be a lot of back and forth here. But in the end, I think Fiziev gets it done, and I think it's within the distance. You know, with Justin Gaethje, in all 4 of his losses, they've all been finished within the distance. So I think it happens once again here. I'm going Rafael Fiziev, exact outcome, KO TKO at plus 140.
And also breaking down the double chance potential there. Moneyline Matt, find him at sportsmemo.com. When they head on over there, after they're thanking you for the free plays that you're dropping here on WagerTalk Extra, what are they going to find locked and loaded at your page, Matt?
Yeah, so they're definitely going to find some UFC plays, that's for sure. I'm going to have probably 2 or 3 plays within the UFC. Probably one of them that we talked about as well. I will hint at that. And then another thing on top of that, the NBA. We have been running hot in the NBA. Positive, I believe, in 4 out of 5 of our last days. So just looking to keep that rolling, winning every single week, winning every single month. And then at the end of the year, we're going to be up. So let's just keep that rolling. Go check it out.
That's Moneyline Matt, and that's going to do it for the week. Big thanks to Andy Lang. Big thanks to Kyle Anthony, and you should be well prepared for this UFC 286 card. And in the meantime, hopefully you're enjoying the madness. We will be back on Tuesday, locked and loaded with another 3-pack of great shows just for you. I've been Dan Alexander, and we'll see you next week right back here on Wager Talk Extra.